Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Oxygen Not Included. As you can tell, the voice quality's gotten quite a bit better, thanks to my new microphone. We had some issues with the save file from the last several episodes, so we are going to start a new colony and see how it goes from there. Once again, Oxygen Not Included is in alpha access, so don't expect too much from the game so far. They're pretty good about getting updates out. I've had one about every other day for the past week. Let's see. Which duplicates do we have available to us? So, something I learned in the last series, vomiters are really handy, believe it or not. They are a constant source of contaminated water. And as you may have guessed, water is one of the biggest things we need to have a successful colony. So, looking at this, we're definitely not going to take May. We're going to reshuffle her until we find somebody who is a vomiter. There we go. Vomiter, but she's got a bottomless stomach. I'm not so sure about that. And the overall stats aren't all that great, so I'm going to keep going. Diver's lungs and a small bladder, also very good learning. That's going to come in really handy here in the next little bit. I realize that we've already got a Meemaw that is really good at learning, but she's not very good at anything else, and she can't cook. Cooking is a really big deal too, so we're going to reshuffle Meemaw. Let's see, once again a vomiter, good creativity, good medicine, decent athletics, but cannot perform the job research. Not that big of a deal. And we're going to take a look at Viola here and the gastrophobia. Since cooking is such a big deal, we're going to swap her out as well, even though she does seem to be a jack of all trades otherwise. And I'm looking down here for a vomiter. Good athletics, good digging, good tinkering, still a yokel. We're only going to have one person capable of running the research. I think that's good enough for now, and I'm going to change our colony. Well, I hate to just call it colony or home. The Doomed Pit. Okay, yes, that sounds about par for what we do. Here we go. Alert! Your crew is awoken miles beneath the surface of an unfamiliar terrestrial body. Oddly, they have no recollection of how they got there. It might be best to start digging. Because the audio quality was so terrible on the first few videos, I'm going to go back over the controls again real quick. Here we've got our cycles, equivalent days. We've got our pause, play, medium speed, fast. Here's a list of our jobs that we have available. You notice that both of our yokels cannot perform the research task. As of right now, I'm fairly certain that we're just going to leave everybody able to do everything. We don't have a whole bunch of option at the moment. Vitals, I don't go to the screen very much, but it provides some excellent information. Daily reports, so we can see how much oxygen we generate, where it goes. Same thing for power and food. Research will become available as soon as we start a research station. And the overlays here. Oxygen overlay. So you can see we've got a high quantity of breathable gas. And it's 1.4 kilograms because it switches back and forth between grams and kilograms. I'm going to try to keep everything in kilograms for you guys. So once again, good oxygen here, lower pressure oxygen up here, but oxygen nonetheless. Let's see, what else can we see? That's here. I'll come back out here. So we've got some coal that'll come in handy. Copper ore, also very handy. Algae, the lifeblood of a colony. While we're on that, let's go ahead and talk about oxalite. Oxalite here is your primary oxygen generation in the early game. That's good stuff. You don't have to put anything into it, and it excretes oxygen for your colony to breathe. Until we get a way to generate oxygen on our own, this is what's going to power our colony, oxygen-wise. So let's start with a little bit of digging, and we'll get into more of the controls as they come up. Seeing as we've got some algae over here and a fair amount of water, I think what I'm going to focus on is getting to this water and all of that algae, all of that good algae. Okay, so everything by default comes in as a priority of 5, and I'll pull up the prioritize overlay. Here we go. Everything comes in as a priority of 5. You can change the priority between 1 and 9. 5 is a happy medium. But as you get further and further into the game, you start falling into this priority hole, I'm going to call it. And if you don't keep your priorities ordered correctly, you're going to have your duplicates running and doing things that just, they don't really help the colony, but they're doing exactly what you told them to do. So, garbage in, garbage out. Okay, let's go ahead and get these guys digging. Oh, and we're definitely going to speed this up a bit. There they go, picking up some algae and some dirt and some rock. And our next step is to get them access to this water over here. And to be able to get in there, they need at least a 2-high segment to get in. They can, as you see, jump up a 2-high segment to get to this water. One of our top priorities is going to be having a place to put stuff, because if you don't have a place to put stuff, you can't keep stuff. Let's see, what else do we have? We've got a ration box. We've already got one of those. I've never built more than one. An outhouse over here, that's going to come in handy very shortly. As they eat, they're going to need to poop. It happens. Never used a medical cot myself. I've been very picky about the duplicates that come into my colony, and I haven't picked any of them that have issues with health. Furniture, cots, and massage tables. So they need a place to sleep, or they're going to get a sore back and they're going to get stressed. So I think our next step is going to be to dig out a segment over here for them to put their cots. And yes, it does seem like I may be overloading these guys a little bit right here at the beginning, but they'll continue to work on that as I plan out the rest of this. Something you'll notice as we build into the power and the water, that you can't run any lines through just plain old dirt and it still be able to have things built on it. So we're gonna take our tile and go ahead and build a floor, and it does this a lot, and I realize that it's mostly the way that I'm dragging it, but I kind of want it to be more intuitive, if you know what I mean. Okay, let's get them started on that. So right now we've only got one type of raw material for building this tile, but over time you'll find that we've got multiple things that we can build it out of. It comes in really handy with things like the water lines, because the water lines by default are built out of granite, and granite is not the easiest to find. Let's see, let's look over here. There's obsidian, igneous rock, granite, basically the same thing, build wise anyway. And you see it's next to all this chlorine. Yeah, we run into that quite a bit. The resources that we want are out of reach because of bad air and other things we don't want in our base, like this contaminated water. There's more igneous rock and granite and things that we need to build stuff. But it's right here next to all of this bad contaminated water. And we don't want to break into there without good reason. Okay, so they're building their cots now. And we will get into how many we need and maybe move those again later. Storage compactor. So every time you build one of these, you're going to have to tell it what you want to put in there. And I want them to be able to put everything in there. Let's see. Do we have... Yes, we've got algae and fertilizer. I'll find it and I'll let you know. But there's slime. I don't know if we come up. Yeah, here's some slime right here. Slime emits this contaminated oxygen here, and we don't want that filling our base. So I was going to go ahead and pick out the slime and have them not collect it. Just have them leave it wherever it is they find it. But since we haven't encountered it yet, it's not going to give us that option. So don't freak out if you don't get those options. Let's see, sweeping. Sweeping comes in handy if you've got stuff just sitting around on the floor and they don't want to pick it up. Okay, so I don't know if you caught that, but Hideki here just took a leak. That happens if they don't have a place to go to the restroom. So we're gonna have them mop that up on a relatively high priority. That emits some contaminated oxygen, and we're not quite prepared to deal with that just yet. I don't know if it actually... Yes, it did actually put some contaminated oxygen into the air for us already. So with that in mind, I think what I'm going to have them do is I'm going to go ahead and dig down. So I want to deconstruct, let's see, probably here, and then build ladders down several levels. Maybe not that far. So we've built down several levels, and I think 4 is the best height. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a floor. And I'm just going to match the floor above it. Aw, and it's nighttime. They're going to take a short nap. Okay, and it's morning again, and off to work they go. On this level down here, I think we're going to prioritize getting somewhere for them to use the restroom, because that's going to come in handy real soon. And I'm also going to find a good place to put our power generation. Now, I don't really want our power generation to be on the ground floor. Yes, I think I'm just going to build into this chamber since it's already got some oxygen in it. There we go. And I'm going to put our power generation down here. That shouldn't cause any issues just yet, and should save us some digging. Actually, I don't want to do that. Let's see. I want to cancel digging out these plants. They're going to come in handy. They're going to come in very handy for food production here in the very beginning. So let's see. I want them to dig that out, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. That's a buried muck root. They can go ahead and eat that muck root. You can't grow more of it. It's one and done. This bristlebriar, we also want them to dig out. It doesn't provide anything useful until you get into making some decor to, decrease stress. And speaking of decor, let's take a look at that real quick. So you see all these red areas? The decor is low because of things that we've built there, and they're not particularly happy about that. You'll see that their printing pod gives a lot of decor, because I guess it's because they assume that you're going to be building a lot of things around there, and it needs to bump up the decor, and it takes up a lot of space. Let's see. So I was talking about these plants down here. So we can dig up that bristlebriar and put it into a planter, and that will help improve our decor. I don't really want them to get rid of this oxalate just yet. These mealwood plants, those will continuously produce food. There we go. And like I mentioned, these buried muck roots are one and done kind of things. And we've had some mishaps yet again. Let's go ahead and pause it real quick and give them a way to use the restroom responsibly. And the issue, the reason I haven't dug this out is because I haven't told them to dig that out. I do want that to be higher than average priority, because having a place to use a restroom is a big priority. That said, I also want them to go ahead and mop up this mess that they've made before it becomes a big deal, because we don't want that contaminated oxygen all over our base. And it just keeps growing. You'll notice that with contaminated water, it seems to grow faster. And one drop of contaminated water will greatly reduce the amount of regular water that you have available. So if at all possible, you do not want contaminated water getting anywhere near your regular water. There we go. We have a place for them to use the restroom. I would rather like them to go ahead and get this mopping done, though. I don't think I've ever had a start that's been this good. There's a ton of algae here, and there is a ton of water. Water everywhere. Oh, and it's nap time. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this sweeping job, because I don't have anywhere to put it. And speaking of not having anywhere to put it, let's give them a place to put it. And we're probably going to need 2 of those. You see that it's filling up rather quick. This is just for some future expansion, and it's coming in as standard priority. They haven't yet mopped that up, and I want them to get it done, and I want them to get it done now. Yeah, we've got a few bubbles of contaminated oxygen, mostly because our current oxygen level is quite high. I don't think it's had anywhere to go. But as we dig down here, it's going to have a place to go. Oh, and the mealwood plant. See these lice climbing all over it? That's edible. And we're going to have them harvest it so they've got something to eat. Let's have them mop this since they didn't quite finish the job. Yes, I know it's gross. Nobody really likes mopping up that kind of mess. Oh no! Oh no! That one drop of contaminated water is contaminating the water that's coming out of here. And I didn't really want water coming out of there. So let's deconstruct this bottom one and then replace it with the tile. I'm looking at this sandstone here. It doesn't specifically say that it's permeable, but it's got some cracks in it, and I don't trust the cracks. And let's prioritize that quite high. Okay, yeah, they went ahead and did that. So I'm going to put in a tile here, so it's got fewer places to go, and replace that cracked one with some tile. And they should be able to put that in there. Oh, I do need to cancel that and set some priorities here. So this one is set to a 5, which is normal priority. We want to set this tile, the one that's actually blocking the flow, even higher. and we can go ahead and cancel that job. There we go, and we have solved our leak issue. I'm just going to leave this water down here for them to come back and pick up when they need some water. You notice, as they dig, that piece cracks more and more until it goes away. While you're digging, you've got this nice little loading bar showing how close you are to actually breaking it. When it's something naturally generated, like the lower left-hand corner of this water pocket, you don't have that. Oh, and we've got a brand new duplicant ready to come on out. Okay, we've got 2 vomiters, and you'll notice that we can't shuffle them now. Very good creativity, but a narcoleptic, interior decorator, small bladder. Let's go with Elvis. Welcome to the colony. And I want to go ahead and set those to being able to accept all. I've run into issues before getting everything stored, have tons of things on the ground ready to be swept, and nothing in it. Nothing gets picked up because I don't have anywhere to put it. So this may not be the best place to put it, but I'm going to go ahead and get us an electric generator. Oh no, come on. You can do better than that. I wanted to get us some batteries because those will come in quite handy very soon. And I also want to take care of our food issue. That requires copper ore, and we do not have enough copper ore. So we can go ahead and get some power generation going. I'm going to go ahead and let them start building on that, but I'm also going to build up a bit so that we can get to this copper ore that we spotted earlier. There we go, making good progress. And as soon as that's done, we should have somebody go ahead and start powering up our batteries. There we go. Batteries are starting to get powered up. And while they're sleeping, I'm going to go over why I did 4. And that's going to come in handy later. So I've been through this a little bit, and I understand, some of the upcoming research. And the bigger batteries take up the place of 2 batteries, while also having quite a bit more power capacity than the small batteries. So if you do them in groups of 2, you know that you have the right footprint for the larger batteries. Speaking of batteries and this manual generator here, you'll notice there's a battery threshold. So you can have them stop when it hits halfway, or you can have them stop when it fully fills up. Let me rephrase that a bit. So they don't stop at halfway, they start charging again at halfway. I do think they fill it up all the way the first time. Okay, we've got access to that top area. Let's go ahead and dig out some of this copper and some of this coal. The coal is not super useful at the moment, but it will quickly become useful. Let's see, something that's going to take a lot of power I want to put near the power. And let's see, do we have stations? Yes, we have our research station. Research station is how you get your new research. I'm going to build this supercomputer on a very low priority so that they can get to it whenever the heck they feel like it. So let's go ahead and hook up this microbe musher. They'll be able to start producing their own food. And right now I want to set to fabricate some mush bars. They're not very nutritious, but they work. It's an edible putrefied mud slop. Nobody wants to eat that, but it'll keep them going. It takes dirt and bottled water. It only gives 1,000 calories per bar, and it may cause diarrhea. That's gonna be unpleasant fairly quick. I haven't personally noticed folks having diarrhea, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And these toilets, you see this little gauge on the right? There's only so many uses before it has to get fixed or cleaned out. And speaking of cleaning them out, we do not have compost yet. That's something we need to research. So I'm going to select a research, and my preferred first research is this farming tech. It gives us an algae terrarium, so a way to produce oxygen on our own, a compost bin to help take care of that contaminated dirt, and a planter box so we can plant food. Let's see. Okay, so it is going to start researching that as soon as it's able. Let's see. It has still not got any. Okay, there we go. It has some power now, and we want to fabricate some novice research and continuously generate that novice research. And it's nighttime again. I may consider creating a new one of these ration boxes. Let's see, does it say what we've got in there? We've got some muck root, we've got some mush bar, and we've got some meal lice. It's not anywhere near full yet, and since this microbe musher isn't at a particularly high priority, it should take care of itself. But I want to shoot for a very high level of calories so that we've got a little bit of headroom. Kind of like what we're doing with these batteries. We're not using anywhere near that much power, but we want it to be able to last overnight. As soon as we get lights and things over here in the decor, it's going to be a big deal. I'm going to keep an eye on this research. So we've got 4 so far, and it's been almost half a day. So we're probably going to finish this up tomorrow morning on the research. And while they do that, I'm going to go ahead and dig out a bit more of this coal and a bit more of this copper. We do need some raw materials and some of that algae as well. Speaking of digging out that algae, I want them to go ahead and dig all of that out. And I want to replace 1, 2, 3, 4 that level with some tile. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to prioritize the tile lower than the surrounding material, so they should go ahead and dig out all of that stuff before they make the tile and can't reach it. Oh, and our storage compactors are full again. Let's build a few more. And I'm going to prioritize these a little bit higher than average so that we go ahead and get those built. There we go. Now we have a place to put our stuff. And I was mentioning that there are only so many uses in this outhouse before it needs to be cleaned, fixed, and all that. It has reached it. Sorry, Hideki, but you were the first one to make a mess. It makes sense that this is your job. We'll see how close I was on that research estimate. Too short. So yes, we're going to finish that fairly early tomorrow morning. Aw, come on, Elvis. Well, that's not fun. While they're sleeping, they're not going to get up to clean a mess like that, but I do want to go ahead and set a mopping priority on it and get rid of it ASAP. It's probably... Ooh, that's not good. Contaminated dirt. Let's get you stuffed away somewhere. Actually, let's leave it. Never mind. So, that sound you just heard means our research is complete, and we can select a new research. Let's see. Water comes in very handy early on. Gas piping, not quite so much. This gas permeable tile is handy, but I've been making do with replacing some of the tiles, if you don't have anything built on them, with ladders. That'll let the gas through and the water through, but you can't build on it. And gas permeability is a big deal here. In just a second I'll pull up the gas overlay and let you see what is going where. Let's see. These mechanized airlocks are incredibly handy. So I've never gone the temperature modulation before. I've never found a real use for it. Never really. I don't usually do plants. Plants are probably the biggest reason you would want temperature modulation. So I'm gonna come down into the liquid piping so that we can get to the sanitation sciences. Now, in the sanitation sciences, we've got a air deodorizer. That's kind of a big deal. That contaminated dirt that we keep picking up that keeps putting off that contaminated oxygen will be cleaned up with this. So all it takes is some sand, and it'll pull in that contaminated oxygen and put out some, well, cleaner air. It doesn't actually add or take away anything but the contamination. So your oxygen levels should stay the same. This manual airlock, unlike the mechanized airlock, does not take power. The mechanized airlock should work like a manual airlock if there's no power, but I do believe it costs more to build. Once again, speaking about the liquid piping, this percolation area here, we've got a biodistiller. Biodistillers will help us take some of that slime that I was mentioning that puts off the contaminated oxygen and turn it into regular old algae and contaminated water, I believe. We can then clean up the contaminated water with this water purifier. The electrolyzer, I don't like using the electrolyzer. It produces a steady supply of oxygen using piped-in water. So when you use your water in the electrolyzer, you get oxygen and hydrogen. It doesn't mention it here, but you will be getting hydrogen in your base, and that is not breathable. It may come in handy later for power generation, but in my opinion, the water is much more valuable. So I'm going to click on here. So as soon as they're done with the liquid piping, they're going to go ahead and move into the sanitation sciences. And you'll notice there's a difference in the bars below. So here, it only takes novice research. If we go up to the sanitation sciences, it takes novice research and intermediary research. It requires that supercomputer to be up and running. So as soon as we're done with our next set of research, I'm going to go ahead and prioritize that supercomputer and go ahead and have them plug that in. So, what we got in that last set of research was the compost bin, which needs to come over here next to the outhouse so that we can go ahead and take care of some of that contaminated dirt. We got our planter box. I'll find a good place for that in a moment. And our oxygen. The algae terrarium. So I like to start one block in from the outside so I can block things off if I need to. I have serious doubts that I'll ever need to block this algae terrarium off. But I'm going to build it in 4 blocks. So 4, skip 1, 4, and if I was going to continue to build, I would skip 1 and keep going. And the reason I would do that is because of these floor lamps. If I stick it up in an open area, you can see how much area that covers. It very easily covers 4 blocks worth of algae terrariums. So I'm going to stick one here, and with that single lamp, it should be able to handle all of those algae terrariums. I don't know if you were able to catch that when I was first looking at them for research, but they are much more efficient if they have a light right next to them, and we need to power that light. I'm going to drag it over here to this ladder. I like using those as ways to get my cable places. And boop, there we go. And we will have power to that as soon as they're done building that area. They do seem to be very hungry. We've got quite a bit of food though. Yep, okay. So they're spending a lot of time going to get this water here, bringing it back over so they can make some food. Now we've got almost 40,000 kilocalories. So I'm going to take this microbe musher and I'm just going to drop the priority down. So if I need to get it back up, I can just bump the priority back up. That's a bit easier than changing the priority, than disabling the building. If you disable a building, you need a duplicate there to turn it off. And when you need to re-enable it, you need a duplicate there to re-enable it. To change the priority, you don't need anybody to go up to it. And since it's now prioritized lower than all of this, they should go ahead and build all of that and dig it out. Oh, I said I was going to take a look at the gas overlay as soon as we got back, and I failed to do that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So, looking right here, where the majority of the work is getting done, all the running, they're generating quite a bit of carbon dioxide. So this carbon dioxide is just loaded up right here. I'd like to get that out, and that's something I'm going to do, but it may take some time before I can really put it somewhere. One of the short-term ways to take care of that is to dig a well, like this one, and let it just drift down. And as far as I can tell in my testing, it can drift 4 blocks down. So if you've got water, it will go down 1 step and then run for 4 blocks and then stop. Well, run for 5 blocks and then stop. That's why you build it 4 long. That way it will go all 4 and then over the edge. You can keep that going for quite some time. I haven't done a whole bunch of testing on gas, so I don't know how far that will drift, but I'm going to try to keep areas like this to below 10. That way we know that it'll drop off one side or the other side. If you have been paying attention, you notice that we had some oxalite up here, down here, whole bunch of places. We don't have that anymore. We don't have the oxalite that we need. That's not good. But that's why building these algae terrariums is such a priority. Oh, and we've got a new duplicate. Let's see who we've got available. We've got Ellie, Cass, and Howard, and we're looking for a vomiter, and there is not a vomiter. Destructive stress responses, they will actually actively go find your most useful, most needed piece of equipment and break it. So, no matter how good these guys are in other ways, I do not want a destructive duplicate anywhere in my colony. The vomiters, I can deal with that. I can have a place for all that contaminated water to go and refine it and do something useful with it. So I'm gonna reject all of these guys and hope we get a vomiter in the next one. So I don't know if you've noticed, but we've got this icon on the things that we're trying to build. It says we've got a missing foundation. That's not very good. You'll run into that a lot. That foundation has to be there so that you can actually have something built. Even though this is built and it's got some of the resources it needs to continue working, it's not going to work until it has a way to. It doesn't have a floor. Let's see. I can probably go ahead and prioritize this tile because they've cleared out everything below it. I want to actually get the one under that too. Okay, so we'll see what happens tomorrow, but I think I'm gonna call it an episode for now. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.